Have you ever felt like you shared a little too much, a bit too soon? As we get a little wiser, we start realizing some things are just better kept to ourselves. I want to talk about 5 important things that maybe we should think twice about sharing with family, especially as we get a little older. It's not about being secretive, but about protecting our own peace, our dignity, and maybe even making our relationship stronger. Stick around to the end, because understanding these things can really save us from some unnecessary regrets, and maybe even bring us closer to the people we love. As the years go by, we definitely pick up wisdom, hard-earned lessons from everything we've been through. But along with that wisdom sometimes comes regrets throughout. The more we live, the more we think about the choices we've made, the paths we didn't take, and those things we maybe wish we hadn't said. One of the biggest regrets people express later in life is sharing too much, just giving away personal thoughts, vulnerabilities, things that maybe should have stayed private. It's not about being deceptive, it's about keeping your dignity, staying strong, and making sure your stories don't become a burden on others. So, there are 5 things specifically that a wise person learns to keep a little closer to the vest. If you don't, you might notice people treating you a little differently. Not necessarily in a bad way, but maybe just a subtle shift. You might not be seen as a strong, resilient person anymore, the one people look to for advice. Instead, maybe you're seen as a little fragile, someone who needs care more than respect. And maybe even, people start listening to you with a little bit of pity instead of admiration. One of the most important things we should really guard closely is personal regret. Regret can be a heavy weight, and as we get older, it's natural to want to let it go, to share those feelings with family, hoping to find some comfort or closure. But while that might feel good in the moment, it can also have lasting consequences, kind of ripple effects through our relationships that we might not expect. When a parent or someone older shares their deepest regrets, especially with their kids, it can change how they see themselves and their own lives. A father who says he wishes he'd chosen a different career might make his children question their own choices. A mother who admits she regrets a past relationship might unintentionally plant seeds of doubt, making her kids wonder if they're just a result of past mistakes instead of cherished choices. Knowing that someone they admire has carried such deep sadness can be unsettling. It can change the family dynamic, turning admiration into sorrow, gratitude into guilt. Kids might feel like they can't change the past, but they're burdened by the knowledge that someone they love has lived with such disappointment. They might even start to feel like their own existence is tied to some unfortunate decision, instead of a life well lived. And beyond that, dwelling too much on the past can steal from the present. When someone's always talking about what could have been, what they should have done, it creates a kind of sad atmosphere, instead of appreciating the moments that are still happening. It can make family members feel like they're not enough to bring joy, like the time they spend together is overshadowed by what's been lost. Instead of bringing people closer, talking about regrets too much can actually create distance. Conversations become heavier, interactions are tinged with sadness instead of warmth. Loved ones might feel like they're carrying a burden they were never meant to carry. Instead of feeling understood and comforted, the person sharing their regrets might end up feeling more alone, stuck in a cycle of reliving the past instead of embracing the time they have left. It's not about hiding the truth or pretending regrets don't exist. It's about understanding that some emotions, some reflections, are best handled privately or with someone who can offer guidance without those unintended consequences. There's strength in being discreet, wisdom in holding back, and peace in knowing that the most important things aren't always the ones we say out loud, but the ones we keep carefully inside. There's also a real danger in letting reflection turn into bitterness. It's normal to think back on life choices, good and bad, and feel all kinds of emotions. Talking about regret, when you do it the right way, can actually be a good thing for personal growth. It helps you learn, become more self-aware, and maybe even share some wisdom with others. But when regrets become the main topic, constantly focusing on past disappointments can really wear down relationships. Loved ones might start to pull away, not because they don't care, but because they feel helpless. They can't change the past, no matter how much they want to comfort you, and being constantly reminded of mistakes or missed chances can just leave them feeling emotionally drained. Over time, this can change the way you interact, turning meaningful conversations into something that feels emotionally taxing. Instead of sharing laughter and connection, conversations might become overshadowed by sorrow, frustration, or even resentment. The difference between healthy reflection and just dwelling on regret is knowing when to speak up and when to keep certain thoughts private. It's not about holding back emotions or avoiding important talks, but about knowing how to communicate in a way that helps people understand, instead of burdening them. Instead of dwelling on what you can't change, try turning those reflections into valuable lessons that can help others avoid similar situations. That can be a much more positive and uplifting way to share your life's wisdom. Also, financial matters, those are deeply personal, but they definitely affect relationships. Honesty is important, but there's a fine line between being open and sharing too much, especially when you're talking about money. How you share financial information with your family can have long-lasting effects, sometimes in ways you can't even predict. Whether you're going through a tough time or doing really well, both can create complications in family dynamics that you might not see right away. What starts as a simple chat about money problems, maybe just complaining about bills, worrying about retirement or unexpected expenses, can slowly make your loved ones worry. Kids, no matter how old they are, might start to feel like they need to take care of their parents, even if it hurts their own financial situation. A son or daughter who keeps hearing about their parents' money troubles might feel like they need to step in and help, even if it puts a strain on their own family or goals. Over time, this can cause stress and turn love and care into financial obligations. The child might not resent their parents, but they might feel stuck between their responsibilities and the pressure to help. What started as a simple conversation about money can actually change the whole relationship, turning it from something based on respect and support into something defined by duty and financial strain. On the other hand, talking too much about how well you're doing can also have unintended consequences. There's nothing wrong with being proud of what you've accomplished, but sharing too much about your wealth can create unrealistic expectations. Some family members might start to feel entitled, assuming that because a parent or relative is doing well, they should automatically be taken care of. This can lead to people becoming dependent, relying on the expectation of financial support instead of building their own independence. Also, differences in wealth within a family can cause tension, even if no one says anything. Siblings might start comparing themselves to each other, leading to jealousy, rivalry, or resentment. Talking about inheritances, loans, or gifts can make things even more complicated because different expectations and perceived favoritism can cause conflicts that damage family bonds. Money is a part of life, but you should approach it carefully. Being transparent is good, but it should always be balanced with being discreet. How you talk about your financial situation can really shape your family dynamics, influencing relationships for years to come. Choose your words carefully, focus on teaching financial lessons instead of just complaining or making demands, and keep a positive attitude. That can help keep both the emotional and financial peace within your family. It's powerful to be discreet, to choose what to share and what to hold back. Life is built on relationships, and how we communicate is so important. What we share or don't share affects how others see us, how they treat us, and how our relationships grow. Being open and honest is important, but there's also wisdom in being discreet. You don't need to share every detail of your life, because some topics can actually change your relationships in ways that might not be good for you. One of those areas is talking about finances. Money can affect relationships more than we realize. The moment money becomes a frequent topic, the dynamic can change, sometimes a little, sometimes a lot. Instead of being valued for who you are, your wisdom, your kindness, there's a risk that you might start being seen as just a financial resource. If you're doing well and you talk about your wealth, some family members might start to see you as a source of support instead of someone they love and respect. They might not mean to, but as soon as money comes into the picture, expectations can form. You might find that relatives become more comfortable asking for help, even if they wouldn't have before. Conversations might start including subtle hints about their money problems, and before long, your generosity might be taken for granted instead of appreciated. On the other hand, if you talk about your financial struggles, the dynamic can change in a different way. Family members who used to see you as independent might start to see you as a burden, even if they care about you. They might approach conversations with hesitation, worrying about how much you're struggling. Some might even pull away, unsure how to help or unwilling to take on more responsibility. Both of these situations, being seen as a resource or as a burden, can damage the genuine connections that are so important. The love and respect we share with family shouldn't be influenced by money, but when you share too much about your finances, it's hard to prevent those shifts from happening. It's wise to be careful about financial discussions. Being transparent with a spouse or partner is important, but sharing too many details with extended family is often unnecessary and sometimes unwise. Instead of revealing everything about your finances, it's often better to offer guidance, share financial wisdom, and help others learn how to manage their own money. By leading by example, you can keep control of your financial narrative while still offering valuable insights. Family opinions can be tricky. Family relationships are complicated, full of history, emotions, and dynamics that have been developing for a lifetime. Within these relationships, it can be tempting to share your opinions about certain family members, especially when you're feeling frustrated or emotional. When you feel strongly about someone's behavior, Sharing those thoughts can feel like a good way to release those feelings and confide in someone you trust. However, what seems like a harmless opinion can have long-lasting consequences that go beyond that one conversation. Words can't be taken back, and they have the power to shape relationships in ways that might not be obvious at first, but can unfold over time and be hard to fix. One of the biggest risks of sharing strong opinions about a family member is the division it can create. A single comment at a son-in-law, a harsh critique of a sibling, or a moment of frustration directed at an adult child can stay in the minds of those who hear it. Even if those opinions are shared in confidence, they have a way of spreading, sometimes unintentionally, sometimes in ways you never expected. Imagine a grandparent sharing their disappointment in a granddaughter's career choice. That feeling, once shared with another family member, doesn't just disappear. It might be repeated subtly or directly until it reaches the granddaughter herself. Even if the words were spoken out of concern, they can leave a lasting mark. She might start to feel like she has to prove herself, or that she's already been written off by her family. That's why being discreet is so valuable for keeping strong family bonds. Choosing to withhold certain opinions doesn't mean being dishonest. It means being mindful of the weight your words carry. Healthy relationships require careful navigation, and not every thought or frustration needs to be said out loud. There's great power in restraint in recognizing that while honesty is important, it has to be balanced with considering how your words will be received and how they'll shape the relationships you care about. As we get older, talking about health becomes more common. Our bodies change, new challenges come up, and staying on top of medical concerns becomes a bigger priority. However, when health becomes the main focus of every conversation, it can change how family members see and interact with you. When younger family members hear you constantly talking about ailments, doctor visits, or physical limitations, they might start to see you as fragile or dependent, even if they don't mean to. Where they once saw you as strong, wise, and capable, they might start to approach interactions with concern, caution, or even pity. This shift is rarely intentional or mean-spirited, it's often rooted in love, but it can still change the dynamic. It's important to share health updates when you need to, but it's just as important to make sure that health doesn't become the only thing you talk about. Conversation should still include laughter, stories, and discussions about hobbies, interests, and meaningful life experiences. By keeping a well-rounded conversation going, you remind everyone that you're more than just your physical condition. You're an individual with a rich history, valuable insights, and ongoing contributions to make. Fear is a natural part of life, especially as we get older and face uncertainties about the future. Worrying about aging, loneliness, health, or the state of the world is understandable, and sharing those concerns is normal. However, when conversations become dominated by fear and anxiety, it can put an emotional weight on those around you. Loved ones might want to reassure you, but they might also feel helpless if they don't have solutions. Over time, if interactions consistently focus on worries and negative outcomes, family members might start to approach conversations with a sense of obligation rather than joy. Instead of looking forward to visits or phone calls, they might start to brace themselves for another discussion filled with distress and concerns. Strength doesn't come from ignoring fear, but from choosing not to let it overshadow the present. By choosing to focus on moments of joy, gratitude, and shared experiences, relationships stay rooted in warmth and connection, rather than anxiety and worry. Discretion isn't about withholding love or shutting down meaningful conversations. It's about knowing when and how to share in ways that strengthen relationships, rather than complicate them. Whether it's financial matters, personal opinions, health concerns, or fears about the future, carefully considering what you share ensures that your relationships stay filled with trust, respect, and genuine connection. In the end, the strongest relationships are built not just on honesty, but on wisdom, kindness, and the ability to navigate life's complexities with grace. So, we've talked about 5 important things that are best kept to yourself after 65, not to be deceptive, but to protect your peace, dignity, and relationships. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing you've learned from this that you'll start practicing in your own life? Share it in the comments below. Let's learn from each other and grow together. If you're enjoying content like this, be sure to stay tuned for more updates that can help you live your best life.